Good evening, everyone. My name's Aaron. Thanks for joining me today. We're taking a quick look at the rest of the Transformers cards that were revealed at Hasbro Pulse Con today. I actually got the name of the event right this time. We saw a couple yesterday. We had some really cool ones: Starscream, Optimus Prime, and we got 9 more rounding the set out. And we're going to take a quick look. I'm just going to kind of read off the cards, give my first impressions of them, and what immediately comes to my mind when I see these cards and what I can do. And I'll tell you, looking at Ultra Magnus here, this is definitely a card tailored to the way I would play the game of Commander here. So, Ultra Magnus Tactician, it's 4 in Anaya, that's 7 mana value. It's a really expensive card. It's typically not hard to get to that in those colors. You have green, you can ramp as hard as you can, so hitting 7 mana on like turn 5 is pretty regular. But let's see what it does here. It has Ward 2, and Ward is a thing that'll creep up on you. Let me tell you, Ward is a game changer. Ever since they keyworded that, if you get 1 mana up for Swords of Plowshare or something, and the thing has Ward, you're holding in 1 mana up just doesn't do anything anymore. So whenever Ultra Magnus attacks, you may put an artifact creature from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking, and if you do, convert Ultra Magnus at the end of combat. And that's a tricky one. There's a lot of really nasty big artifact creatures that you could just cheat out for turning sideways in colors that wants you to turn sideways like immediately. Like there's Blightsteel Colossus, Wormcoil Engine, Phyrexian Metamorph, or Triniform, excuse me, or whatever it's called. There's the other Phyrexian Triniform that came in the Boros Precon that came out a couple months ago. There's a lot of really just stinky things you could do, and whenever you're cheating mana on something, like it's gonna be big, and it's rewarding you for attacking, and then just like on attack, just like, hey, boom, Blightsteel Colossus, like it's your problem now, and it's on the field. And the backside of Ultra Magnus wants you to, whenever Ultra Magnus attacks, attacking creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. If those creatures have power total 8 or greater, convert Ultra Magnus. So that's a old, like, I believe it's like a cons mechanic called Formidable or something like that, or Ferocious. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but that reminds me of that, of just rewarding you for having big dumb creatures. It's weird that this is it's Naya colored and it's on Ultra Magnus, because the previously Grimlock card that they had from years and years and years ago, this seems like it would be real good for Grimlock, not Ultra Magnus, but that's what they went with, and it seems pretty cool. So it's definitely, if you like Big Stompy and you want to play a robot, Big Stompy robot, it's definitely, there's a lot of really good Big Stompy robots. You got like Bosch. Bosch can have something drop and sacrifice it and throw it at face. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, then everyone's gonna want to do Blightsteel Colossus, which is the degenerate thing that you could do with it for sure. But it'll blank someone. And the next card we got here is Megatron Tyrant. I'm very hyped up for Megatron, even though this card seems a little clunky, but like I love Megatron so much, I'm gonna build this. I'm kind of bummed he's Mardu. I was hoping he was Grixis or something like that. But I have a lot of Mardu decks, but I guess I have another. I'll be ordering another playset of Mardu fetch lands to build this deck, but let me see here. More than meets the eyes for 1 in a Mardu. Regular hard cast is 3 in a Mardu. Your opponents can't cast spells during your combat, so no combat tricks at all, but specifically during your combat. But that protects your combat a lot, which is pretty interesting. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may convert Megatron, and if you do, you add 1 colorless mana for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. And the backside says, whenever Megatron attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact. When you do, Megatron deals damage equal to the sacrifice's artifact's mana value to target creature. If excess damage will be dealt to that creature this way, instead that damage is dealt to the creature's controller, and you convert Megatron. So this is a interesting card. It's gonna definitely be kind of a Rube Goldberg machine to make it work, but I love the flavor of Megatron hurling his own allies at other people, which is the thing he used to do. He would like push other people in his way to get ahead because he was a total scumbag. But yeah, it looks like it definitely is going to want you to play a lot of artifact creatures and a lot of things that you can just kind of throw. I mentioned Bosch. If you want to sacrifice a Blightsteel, probably like it's most likely going to be things like Cataclysmic Gear Hulk, Noxious Gear Hulk. I can't remember the red Gear Hulk, but a lot of cards like that. They're just kind of 6 mana. That'll definitely hit something. You're definitely like, I know people are like, oh, you can cast Eldrazi and stuff like that with the colorless mana. Like, you're probably not going to be doing 10 excess damage. That's a lot of damage to be doing, and casting it into an Eldrazi or something like that. So you probably want to keep it tight to a lot of 6 drops and things that give you value when they get sacrificed. Wormcoil Engine, Solemn Simulacrum, things like that is probably most likely what's going to fill this deck, and you're just going to want to get Megatron, fling those things at something relevant. I don't know how this deck wins. I really don't. You'll definitely be killing stuff off the board with regularity, but turning that into a way to win is going to be something else. Unless like you can just like take all that colorless mana you get at the end after flinging something big like Bosch or Meteor Colossus or something like that, or excuse me, a Meteor Golem or something stupid like that, and fling it and then go into something else like a, you know, some sort of big X payoff, Torment to Hailfire, or cards like that. Exsanguinate would be a fun one. But yeah, maybe getting some sort of big payoff to spend all that in once you get the big setup. And it's this. Now on second thought, this could probably win. It's a little clunky. There's a lot of parts of it that can be interacted with. So I guess not being able to cast spells during your combat is pretty good. That way, when people see what you're doing, they can't react, so they have to stop you before your combat. This can work. It seems like what's the Boros guy from the Lorehold deck? What's it called? Oskir. Seems like Oskir with extra steps, extra violent steps. So yeah, and definitely, actually, matter of fact, you could put Oskir in this deck. Oskir can bring your stuff back from the graveyard. And then you could make 2 of them, so then you could fling the Wormcoil to fling the Wormcoil dude, and then use Osgear to bring it back from the graveyard, and then you have more, and then you can fling those the next turn, and then probably set up some sort of engine to be able to, you know, have a backup way to start throwing those dudes. Seems pretty neat. Seems like a lot of steps here, but you know, I'm going to make it work. So you'll see a video on this channel one day about Megatron once I get it in hand. So we have Jetfire, Ingenious Scientist. More than meets the eyes for 3 in a blue and 4 in a blue, hard cast. And has flying. Remove 1 or more counters from among artifacts you control. Target player adds that much colorless mana. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. Convert Jetfire. And then more than meets the eyes. Remove 1 or more 1/1 counters from among artifacts you control. Target player adds that much colorless mana. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. Convert Jetfire. So it's definitely going to want you to do a lot of artifact stuff. There's a lot of really good artifact synergies in blue. I mean, you don't have access to, you know, green or anything like that, so all your mana rocks, all your ramp is mostly going to be artifacts. And the first card that popped into my head when I saw this was the Ozlith, which is a card that stores 1/1 counters. So you can blink Jetfire after it adapts, and then have those counters move to the Ozlith, and then have it re-enter, and then readapt, and then just kind of have like a engine going where you could just basically turn your Ozlith into a mana bank and spend that money whenever, or spend the mana whenever you want to, and that seems like some cool stuff you can do with it. And then cash out on something big, Blightsteel Colossus, things like that. Or it's colorless. You can just pop an Eldrazi in there, get Ulamog, Kozilek, Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, take an extra turn. You're playing blue, you're going to be taking a lot of extra turns. So there's some stinky stuff you can do with this. And also, like, a lot of the big blue spells that, you know, you're almost getting a discount for, Slip Through the Back as a card that puts a 1/1 counter on it, and just, I guess the whole deck would kind of want to dump stuff on the Ozlith, so someone could just blow up the Ozlith and start it. But that's, you know, the first thing that came in my head here. We have Blitzwing, Cruel Tormentor, legendary artifact creature robot. They all are. More than meets the eyes for 3 in a black, 5 in a black. And at the beginning of your end step, target opponent loses life equal to the life that player lost this turn. If no life is lost this way, convert Blitzwing. So immediately, this is like a one-hit kill with things like New Blood or anything, like a lot of the cards that just say like, hey, target player loses half their health and things like that. There's a lot of cards that say that, and this just instantly turns those into one-shot kills because they lose the exact amount that they already lost. This is, I think this is a straight up murder with that one Sorin that says, hey, your health becomes 10, right? Because if it says, hey, your health became 10, I don't know if that actually works. It says target player's life total becomes 10, and then technically they lost like 30 life, and then they go from 30 life and they lose another 30, and there's overkill by like 20. I'm not sure if that's exactly how the interaction works. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But that just also seems mean. Just absolutely deleting someone from the game one at a time. And the backside says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose flying or indestructible at random. Blitzwing gains that ability until end of turn, and when it deals combat damage to a player, convert it. So you have to pick one at random. So I imagine that'd probably be a dice roll and just be like, hey, evens is indestructible, odds is, you know, blah, 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 and then flipping it and then see if you can get through. This one's not particularly exciting. I love the art on it because there's some Animorphs stuff going on right now showing Blitzwing transform into the two modes, which is actually pretty cool. And I remember the toy of Blitzwing was able to turn into both as well. It was like one of this, like, oh, the transformer can be two things, and you can like pull the legs down, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And we have Ratchet Field Medic, more than meets the eyes for 1 and a white, and it costs 2 and a white. Lifelink. Whenever you gain life, you may convert Ratchet. When you do, return target artifact card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you gained from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And on the other side, it says whenever one or more non-token artifacts you control are put into a graveyard from the battlefield, convert. This ability only triggers once each turn. Interesting. So let me take a look at this. So you may convert Ratchet, and you're bringing artifacts back with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you gain, which is interesting, especially for decks that aggressively gain life. And it's whenever you gain life, so at any point during the turn if you gain life. So if you have like a big life linker, just clock in for 20, or even something like Aloro, right? Like Aloro, who gains life for doing nothing but sitting in the command zone. You gain life every turn. And then just like whatever's 2 mana artifact is in the graveyard, you can just bring it back. I'm sure there's probably, this seems, and it's worded, like there's some sort of like absolutely busted combo that I'm not thinking of. Like some sort of artifact that comes in and gives you 2 life, and then you sacrifice it or however, and then it comes back, and you can just repeat that and kill someone with that somehow. I'm sure that combo exists out there. I'm on the cusp of thinking of it, but I can't quite think of it right now, which is fine. Alright, so we have Cyclonus the Saboteur. 2 and a Dimir, more than meets the eyes for 5 and a Dimir. That's probably the biggest gap in between regular costing and transformed cost that I've seen, to 4 and 7 mana. So let's see what this card does. When Cyclonus deals combat damage to a player, it connives. Then if Cyclonus' power is 5 or greater, convert it. So conniving's a new mechanic that we found in New Capenna. To have a creature connive, draw a card, then discard a card. And if you discard a non-land card, put a 1/1 counter on it. So it only connives once. So even if you discard off the trigger, it's going to become a 3/5. So you have to either connive a whole bunch of times, and it's every time it does combat damage. So a 2/5 connecting in Commander with flying, so there's a little evasion there, but you're probably going to want to do a lot more work to get it to transform. But it's 7 mana on the other side, or it's worth 7 mana. Living Metal, flying. When Cyclonus deals combat damage to a player, convert it. If you do, there's an additional beginning phase after this phase, and that includes untap, upkeep, and draw. So you just get another beginning phase. So whatever like triggers you have on your upkeep, you get them all over again, so you get an additional entire step. And that's probably really busted. There's probably something you can do. There's like Braids, Conjure Adept. She triggers a second time, and you can have effects like that, or anything that cares about upkeep, like even something as simple as like a Phyrexian Arena. You're going to draw another card, or do whatever busted stuff you want to do during your upkeep. So you can play a lot of cards that grant you stuff about, grant you benefits for your upkeep. It's a lot of work to get it to flip. So I guess it's the 7 mana. I mean, what it does for 7 mana is pretty strong. So that seems appropriately costed, and the work for getting the 4 mana to the other side that's worth 7 mana value seems pretty interesting to be able to get there. And I'm sure there's things you can do, slip through the back, or you can have some sort of sacrifice strategy or put counters on this thing. Pretty hard to do in Dimir. Nothing immediately pops into my mind, so like that connive trigger is going to be important, so you're going to want some other connive cards. Maybe this goes into something like a Raffine deck or something like that, where it can get to that 3 really fast, or have like an Anthem. There's Anthems that... Oh, good, my dogs. They're fine. But yeah, there's like Anthems that care about that and stuff like that, and like Anthems that anthem up flyers. Put it in something like an Alayla, where Alayla and another Anthem, and then you're immediately flipping this card. You could do some stuff with it. We have Prowl, Stoic Strategist, 3 and a white, and more than meets the eyes for 2 and a white. You may cast. I don't know why I'm reading the more than meets the eyes cost. I know what that does. Whenever Prowl attacks, exile up to 1 other tap target creature or vehicle for as long as this card remains exiled. Its owner may play it. Whenever a player plays a card exiled with Prowl, you may draw a card and convert Prowl. And when it converts, it's whenever another creature or vehicle enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Prowl. If this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, convert Prowl. So it wants you to exile your own creatures. It wants you to exile your own creatures and then replay them. So you're effectively casting the same spells again. So you're going to want stuff with like really strong enters the battlefield, leaves the battlefield type effects, and casting them again and again and again for value. This seems really good because in a Commander, a singleton format, being able to cast the same spell multiple times seems pretty good. This is white. There's a lot of ways to blink things, so you can exile, like just being able to just repeat some enter the battlefield effects just seems really, really good. Especially it's tied to your commander, being able to play something like a Charming Prince and choose the different modes and then just exile it and play it again. And having something like the Mothra card, I forget its name, like Luminous Broodmoth, I believe is the official name for Mothra's Supersonic Queen. But playing with that and exiling stuff and maybe sacrificing it, playing it again, exiling it, playing it, looping those flying counters. There's probably something really annoying you can do with this that isn't coming to me, but it's out there and it seems doable. We have my favorite colors in Magic are Gruel, so this is exciting. More than meets the eyes for 1 in a Gruel, and it's Blaster Combat DJ. Of course, Blaster, the counterpart to he's in the same basketball court as Soundwave is in the G1 art. That is so good. That is such a good touch. But 3 in a Gruel. Other non-token artifact creatures and vehicles you control have modular 1, so they enter the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on them, and when they die you may put their 1/1 counters on target artifact creatures, and whenever you put 1 or more 1/1 counters on Blaster, you convert it. That seems pretty easy to do, especially in Gruels. Like, just putting a 1/1 counter is really easy. Just have great Henge on field and cast Dude and put a counter on him and he transforms, or have a what is the one card? I can't remember her name. The call to the hunt card that tells you that like she's a creature that when other people come in, they come in with a counter. So he just enters with a counter and gets to flip immediately. The other side has modular 3 and his artifact, so he's not a vehicle like Soundwave because they are boom boxes. And then you get to move X +1/+1 counters from blaster onto another target artifact. The artifact creature gains haste until end of turn, and if blaster has no counters on it, then convert it. So you get counters on blaster, you put a whole bunch of counters on them, then you flip them, and then you move the counters, and then you flip them, and you do it again. It's a bummer that it only goes to other artifact creatures. Am I reading that correctly? Yeah, move it from blaster onto another target artifact. That artifact gains haste, so it has to be another artifact creature. So you can't do some of the busted stuff, like moving counters over to something like a Vorinclex Monstrous Raider, or anything like that, unless you want to go through all the steps to turn Vorinclex into an artifact. Play something like oh goodness, what's the Liquid Metal Torque that lets you turn anything into an artifact, and then maybe you could use that to get around it, but that seems like a really complicated setup to do something as simple as move counters around. So probably the best way for consistency is just to move them those counters over to things that are already artifact creatures. And I've said Blightsteel Colossus' name so many times that he's going to appear in the mirror and murder me tonight. So who knows, but there's a lot of cool things you could do with that. And then we have the last card here, which is RC Sharpshooter. 1 and a Boros. More than meets the eyes for just Boros. I said this last video, but these cards are so aggressively costed. Or costed down. Like, they're so cheap. Like, they want people to bust these cards out as fast as possible. And the reality of the situation is commander players are attracted to value. So when you want to make a jank engine commander and they cost something, you know, when they see something aggressively costed, like Prosper or Tonebound, people are drawn to cards like that. So I think the play design team definitely kept that in mind when designing these cards and making sure that they're efficiently costed. That way people would be drawn to them to build around them, which is really true, because, you know, a lot of the popular commanders there, if they're like 6 or 7 mana, they have to be doing something absolutely incredible. You can't just have a dumb dumper at 5 mana anymore or anything like that. So she has First Strike, and for 1 mana you can remove 1 or more 1/1 counters from RC, and it deals that much damage to target creature, right? And that's some good flavor, because RC has a gun, and that's their way of flavoring the gun out, because RC just shoots stuff. She's literally shooting people in the art. She doesn't have a Shattered Glass variant either. You know, I guess I don't know much about the Shattered Glass series or the comics or anything that IDW is doing with that, so I know more today than I ever did my entire life yesterday. I was digging on the wiki. And then when you cast a spell that targets 1 or more creatures or vehicles you control, put that many 1/1 counters on RC, convert RC. So whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more, put that many 1/1 counters. I'm having a hard time with this. Where do those counters come from? Whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more creatures, put that many 1/1 counters on RC. Oh, for the spells. Okay, so she gets a, she's like Feather with extra steps, which seems fine. Feather's done the work. Slightly easier to cast. We got Feather the Redeemed at home, and then you build up, you cast all these spells that specifically target people. So a lot of your, you know, Teamer Battle Rage type effects. And their Teamer Battle Rage is such an old, outdated card. I don't know why that's the first one I came to, but a lot of effects like that target creatures. Put a bunch of these counters on RC and then just flip her over, and then have her shoot stuff for 1 mana. So just go pew 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 and pew down the board, and then you can give her things like a Basilisk Collar or a Gorgon's Head, and then give her Death Touch, and then start shooting stuff for lethal. So there's a way. My brain immediately goes to Pinger Tribal for RC Sharpshooter. Her sharpshooting is in her name, so she can shoot stuff. and it seems all right. I'm sure there's something really annoying you can do with that, but I believe that's the last of the Transformers cards. I'm really excited for them. I'll be honest, I'm a little underwhelmed by Megatron. Kind of, I don't really know what my heart wanted him to do anyway. So seeing what he does, of sacrificing and throwing people, sacrificing people for his own good, is pretty good flavor for the bad guy. And I'm definitely going to build that deck. I'm going to start brainstorming it pretty soon. I'm debating if I should like wait till the cards are in my hand to share it and do a traditional video like I've been doing on this channel, or do something where I can just share a Moxfield list and be like, hey, here's my Megatron list. So I don't know. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And thank you for commenting. If you think of any cool synergies, or if I was wrong about anything, or any other cards you're excited about, any of these specific, because I love talking about this. Universes Beyond stuff is exciting. I know a lot of people are really down on it, but like seeing the design philosophy of Magic being applied to other properties and things outside of it, it's really exciting for me, and I think it's fun. And I know the Vorthos people are dying on the inside, and I feel empathy for them, because we're going to link the same webcomic that they've been linking on Reddit for a long time now. And I understand. I'm not going to say I don't understand them at all. I do understand it. But like I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this isn't exciting to me. So seeing things I love represented through Magic cards, because there's always like, oh, just play the Transformers card game. And it's like, who's going to do that? I like Magic. I want things to be in a language that I understand. So anyway, enough of my rant. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me here. I'm sad that there's no Unicron land. I wanted like a Unicron flip land that would be like a 2020 or something stupid that has some sort of weird 5-color implications to it. I was hoping to see something like that. So I'm definitely disappointed by that. But yeah, but I'm really excited. I'm going to get to brewing on these, and let me know what you guys are brewing. All right. So thanks for joining me here tonight, and you all have a good one.